Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is G here, and today I thought I would talk a little bit about me. And I talk a lot about social things and everything, but let's talk about me today. I wanted to have a quick discussion about things that I have learned from my experiences living abroad, about expats, about being abroad, about the lies of social media, and being an American specifically in other countries. I have lived now in Italy for almost 8 years. We gotta work on that. But I've lived here for almost 8 years. Before this, I lived in France, in Paris, and I lived in Guatemala on the side of a volcano. So I have had some really different experiences living in other countries, meeting different people, especially expats. And man, y'all, I have so many stories about that alone, but I'm going to do an overview of things that I've learned and some things that I never expected from, I guess, living abroad. Subscribe to my channel and let's have a little chat.
I'm okay with burning a bridge while I'm standing on it to let somebody know that I'm not to be fucked with. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So this is about me today. First of all, if you don't know, I have started making handbags, and this is a business I'm developing. So if you're not following Barbona Bags on Instagram, please go over, follow Barbona, check out the things that I've made so far. This is something in process, but I'm not revealing it yet. I'm working on something. Anyway, so many Americans are saying they're fed up with living in the United States, like from the political system to finances, the cost of living, all of these things. And people are just like, I'm fed up, I'm leaving, I'm going somewhere. I am going to South America, I'm going to Europe, I'm going to Africa, I'm going somewhere else because I can't stand it, right? And what I have found since I've been abroad and since I have met more American immigrants in other countries, there are some major things that I have noticed about people who decide to leave the country, just up and leave. A lot of people are not leaving their country simply because they're explorers. But most of the ones that I have encountered, a great deal of them are running from themselves. I don't know how else to say it. They have left something behind that they don't want other people to know about. And it doesn't have to be some major thing. It could just be they didn't feel like where they were allowed them to be their complete selves. Other people have recreated themselves in an image that they really would like to present. And some of it is not honest. I have met a lot of American immigrants abroad who are scammers, who are, and I mean, I don't mean like they're like making, phishing accounts and coming up and trying to steal money from people, lying about who they really are in the country that they're in because they can, because there's no one else to say that this person is not who they say they are. Like a quick example is I met a woman a few years ago and we met in person a couple of times, and as we started to talk and get to know each other, her stories wasn't aligning. And then I introduced her to another friend, and she started telling this other friend a completely different history than she had told me. I mean, history in the sense that she was biracial when she actually isn't. Like, I'd seen pictures of her mother. So it was a completely different identity that she decided to tell someone that I introduced her to when I wasn't in the room. That was wild to me. And I have met so many people kind of along those lines where they are, I don't know what else to call them, but liars. A lot of expats actually don't enjoy living in the country that they're in. Not all, but a good amount. And I think sometimes the pressure around having left your home country, having given up everything that you had, you don't know how to return, or you don't feel like you can return. You don't have anything to return to, or like whatever, the amount of money you spent to get to the other place that you are kind of was overwhelming. And a lot of people don't have the financial means necessarily to return, especially someplace like the United States, where it's very expensive to like make a mistake. Being abroad alone, also, I have seen so many people have breakdowns in different ways, be it financially, emotionally, socially, mentally, and feeling that they don't have any help or recourse. You also have to consider where you are. One of my challenges with being in, say, like a country like Italy is that I'm not religious. Italy is a religious country, even though you will meet Italians and they will say, we're not religious. They only say that because they don't go to church regularly, but they're very ingrained in Catholicism mentally and emotionally. They're very attached to the theories and customs and ideologies around this. Like, so much so, like, our kids, like, they don't go, there's religion still taught in schools in Italy, for example, and our kids are, you know, we elected for them not to be a part of the religion courses. There's still religion in school books. They'll have nativity scenes for just general learning, and you'll read something that has something to do with this nativity scene. Like, so they're still being exposed to and indoctrinated in like Catholicism or Christianity. Like, so those kind of things are very difficult for someone who has like my perspectives and points of view of religion. And like, that's a cultural thing, right? Like, if you come to someplace and you do the research and you're like, oh, Italians, you know, I understand Catholicism is a big part of like Italy, but Italians will generally say we're not religious, but they kind of are. So a lot of things you don't see until you actually live there, and sometimes you don't see it until you're actually more and more involved. Like, if I didn't have kids, I probably wouldn't see that they already start indoctrinating the children, whether you choose to or not. There's no real separation of state and church in some places, and this is one of those places. I mean, every country is now moving towards that integrated thing with their religion and government, unfortunately, but it definitely starts to feel a little stressful when you know that you're going to have to try and indoctrinate your children at an early age. The one thing I always thought when I moved abroad, and all my friends would have agreed and everything, is that I could probably fit in most places. And I'm not sure that socially or my personality type necessarily fits in with Italian culture in general, because Italians often do not look at the ways they do things in a critical way. They accept that this is tradition, and maybe that's generally what we all do, but I feel like it's harder to find those people who want to be outside of that kind of ideology in this particular culture. In the United States, I feel like because there's so many different people from so many different backgrounds, you're able to find people who have different ideologies and they don't mind stepping away from what the group is necessarily the direction of the group. They will always justify what they're going to do, right? Like, whatever. If you start thinking about leaving your country, think of your personality as it relates to the personality of the country you think you're going to. A lot of European countries, Americans will think a lot of European countries are very liberal, but they are not. There's a lot of people who are very rigid and very stuck in the traditions that they feel are important, and they want everybody to assimilate to that. So there is there's not a lot, it's very conservative. There's not a lot of liberalism when you come to Europe. There is a difference between the people of color and the white people who are living abroad and their attitudes about the country. A lot of times I find that white Americans who come to Europe actually come and look for a sense of superiority over the Europeans, even in those countries. Generally is financial superiority, because a lot of times Europeans, generally speaking, do not make a lot of money. The average salary in most European countries, and I'm not talking about places like Denmark and Sweden, which have a higher cost of living, but places like Italy and France and Spain, the average salary is somewhere between, like, the low end is around 800 to 900 euros, and the high end would be around 1,500 euros a month. And people say, well, you know, all of these other things are taken care of, healthcare and blah, 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 blah. But depending on where you live, like here in Milan, there is not a lot of difference between an average salary in Milan versus southern Italy, where it's far cheaper. In Milan, you might still have to only be making 12 to 1,500 euros a month, and rent for a studio apartment is going to cost you around maybe 1,000 euros a month. So, and you still have utilities to pay. Those things are not covered, and groceries, and, you know, generally wanting to live. That is also why a lot of people are still roommates at older ages when they're single. And marriage here has a whole different ideology, even, I would say. In a lot of countries, Italy, Spain, France, a lot of people cheat, but a lot of people need to couple because they need to afford to live outside of their parents' houses or whatever. Like, a lot of people stay home until they actually couple with someone, move out, blah, blah, blah. And cheating, I would say, while it might be unofficially accepted, it's almost expected. They might not say, like, oh, it's okay if you go out and cheat, but it's almost expected. And for example, in Italy, marriage vows, where they talk about infidelity, that cannot be a reason anymore, or at least they're trying to say that cannot be a reason for divorce. Infidelity cannot necessarily be a reason for a divorce. You have to prove the infidelity is what actually hurt the marriage, but infidelity is not seen to be harmful to a marriage, as long as, I guess, the people are doing whatever they're supposed to do as a couple. But since they're going to take faithfulness out of the marriage vows, you didn't break promise. So those kind of things are very different. When I think about myself and living abroad, my friends will tell you, my close friends will tell you that, like, they're not surprised that I moved abroad. I had been talking about living in other countries when I was 12 years old. I always said that I was born in the wrong place, and Italy was actually what I manifested when I was a little kid, and I obviously did not know anything about Italy. And when I ended up here, I still didn't know that much about it. I didn't know about the racism. I didn't know about the inbred Catholicism to the extent, because I had been in Paris and everything, and it's far less rigid, I think, living there, and people are far more open-minded and even more accepting. At least that was my experience. I know a lot of people say that they've had terrible experiences even in Paris, and personally I didn't, and I don't invalidate their experiences. It's just what I was exposed to, I guess, and the people I met when I was there. And here it's definitely been different experience, like, overall. And I think that even when I was living on the side of a volcano in Guatemala, like, the people I encountered in the towns and everything were far more open and nice. So it's been one of those things where you learning along the way, but it's not necessarily easy lessons all the time. I don't regret ever like leaving the United States. I don't really regret being in Italy, obviously. I do hope that my partner and I can decide on where we want to go next, because I think that as far as raising our children here, and like I said, the education system and some other things, I'm already finding a little concerning and troubling. And obviously there are things like they won't get shot in school. I don't have to worry about those kind of things happening. But, you know, if we just have to think about things in a normal way, where being shot in a school is not really something that we should be concerned about, but we are in the United States versus other places. I think that if I could just make everything equal, do I feel like the education system is going to serve my kids particularly? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I really don't think so far, because I feel like my kids are stimulated differently, and a lot of places, especially in Europe, depend on people to conform to the systems and the traditions and the things, and the teachers have a hard time with people who do not follow the regimens that they expect for everyone to do. And raising bilingual kids, a lot of times, like, people will blame all of their problems on bilingualism, like especially in countries where a lot of the people only speak one language, like Italy. They say they teach English in the schools here as a standard, but I think the word teach is being misused. I think they expose children to English and maybe some things like listening to songs and blah, 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 but they don't necessarily teach. And so even my children being bilingual, like, a lot of people will be like, oh, they speak Italian so well, or, you know, just because they hear them speaking English, they will assume that their Italian is going to be dumbed down. And this also, they'll say it affects their emotions and their ability to understand things and all of these things that are not true of bilingualism, because it's not grandly understood here, even in the schools. So for me, I think that I have learned so many different lessons, some of which I've just been learning along the way and figuring things out in certain ways. It's also, you know, very different aspects of your personality that is exposed in some places. And I would say, since I've been in Italy, I've definitely been a quieter person, far more introverted than I had been in the past. And partially because most of the expat people I meet are kind of like not necessarily, I can't hang out with all of them and be real friends. You know, I do have managed to meet a couple of women that I will say, yes, these are my friends. I've met one guy that I can say, yes, this is my friend, and I feel lucky that I have them. But I would say outside of them, having met some people, it's just, you left your country to run away from something over there or yourself. And I have seen a lot of that as well, people running from themselves. So I would say, I don't think I had been. I think because it's just something I always wanted to do, that when it happened, I felt like this was the path that I had manifested. I didn't know that I would end up in Italy, really. And my friend reminded me that I had manifested that when we were like 12 or 13 years old. I think that I should have manifested years, but that is just neither here nor there. Maybe later. I'm still alive, so you never know where I'll be next. But guys, that has been kind of my overview thoughts, some things that I have learned, experienced, seen, being an American immigrant in another country. So I thought I'd share that a little bit. I'm going to hopefully share more with you guys. I'm trying to post more than once a week, but I got a lot of stuff going on, guys, and I will be showing some of those things. So guys, subscribe to my channel, and I hope you enjoyed this chat. I would look forward to hearing your comments and questions in, you know, the comment section. We can chat. So guys, ciao for now.